last days madness. Are we in the last days of the world? Is there going to be a rapture soon? Most Christians who believe that we're drawing close to the last days are continually trying to identify both the beast and the Antichrist. They play this game of find the beast and identify the Antichrist. It's become an adult Christian's version of the child's game, pin the tail on the donkey. Every few years, participants place blindfolds over their eyes, turn around 6 times, and march towards a wall. Books like 88 Reasons Christ, the rapture will take place in 1988. Oh yeah, which of course it didn't. That book was a sold biggest failure in the world. The whole problem is people who buy books like this, people who buy books like Hale Lindsey's Late Great Planet Earth. He originally said in that first book the rapture had to happen by 1988, 40 years after the formation of national Israel in the Middle East. He had people believing it. The 80s and 70s, kids were dropping out of college. Why go to college? The rapture's coming. It turned the world upside down. And it's false. And the people who buy these books, they self-consciously forget that the last self-proclaimed expert in biblical prophecy predictions did not come true. They forget when John Hagee's wrong, when Hale Lindsey's wrong, when Edgar Weissenhart's wrong. They never learn to recognize that the next false prophet is just saying the same thing. They don't recognize these people. They refuse to admit to themselves that they've been suckered by the last one. This has been going on throughout the 20th and into the 21st century. Generation after generation of, again and again, some prominent world political figure has been identified as either the beast or as the Antichrist. Lenin, Mussolini, Hitler, Stalin, even Henry Kissinger were all going to be the Antichrist. Ronald Reagan, his name had Ronald Wilson Reagan. Each of those 3 parts of his name had 6 letters, 666. He might have been the Antichrist. In 1978, the book The Rise of the Antichrist by Salem Kirban announced, "We are already living in the age of the Antichrist. The world is on the threshold of catastrophe. Scientific advances are really scientific tragedies that will spell chaos, confusion, and terror." It went on to say, "Within the next 5 years, design your own child by going to the genetic supermarket. Your mind will be programmed without you knowing it." It continued, "Within the next 10 years of 1978, remember, your brain will be controlled by outside sources. Your memory will be transferred into a live embryo," and on and on and on. One of the things predicted by Salem Kirban in his book Rise of the Antichrist was head transplants would become a reality. So, who's going to be the first 2 volunteers for this? According to Mr. Kirban, he literally expected us to believe that he knew what he's talking about, that he was taking the Bible literally with his craziness. He sold a lot of books in the 70s, 30 different titles on prophecy by 1978 alone. It's just nuts. The rapture will be soon. It's crazy. The rapture is going to come. And Christians keep buying this next book, this next book, this next book. Listen to this next teacher, this next teacher, this next teacher. I remember when the mark of the beast was going to be a barcode. Of course, now it's the microchip, Every generation of false prophets always draws another inches along the baseline of their prophecy charts. They come up with some new way things are happening. They look at the newspaper and that's how they make their decisions. You want to get rich? Write a prophecy book. Write a prophecy book. It's time for Christians to actually study the scripture as interpreted by the scripture. You want to understand Revelation, you must understand Malachi, Isaiah, Daniel, Ezekiel, Zechariah, the Psalms, even Moses had these. You must read those prophecies, understand the language of prophecy, the Old Testament, before you can pick up the book of Revelation. You've got to look at the time references and realize who these things were written to and when these things are truly supposed to happen. So I share this because Christians need to stop being fooled because they keep expecting the rapture anytime, the end of the world anytime. We're not doing the important things we should be doing to build the kingdom. We're not influencing our culture the way we ought to influence our culture. Christ's kingdom is going to fill the world before his return. That mustard seed becomes the largest tree in the garden. That little bit of leaven in the loaf becomes a great loaf. Over and over again, Christ's parables talks about a kingdom that's going to grow and consume the world. And we need to be about the kingdom's work, not trying to predict end time fiascos. May grace and peace be with you. This is Dennis Regling, GoDeeperBibleStudy.com. Thank you for listening. Please remember to subscribe and ring the bell for future videos.
This is my Father's world.